Hi, I'm Shelley Miller-Lear. I have been flipping furniture, mainly upholstered furniture, since about 2009, both online and live. And I've also been teaching that to mostly women, a lot of men as well. But I've been doing it in my live shop, which I've recently closed, and I've also done it in online classes. But one of the first things people ask is what kind of tools do they need for the job? And I'm going to show you some basic tools, a variety of tools that you'll need to have on hand if you want to pursue this beyond maybe a first or second project. My advice is always don't invest in a bunch of upholstery specific tools until you know you really love this and you're going to pursue it. They're not cheap. They do last forever. I have tools I've used for 30 years, so it's not like they wear out necessarily. But you do want to make sure that you're into it and you're committed before you buy those tools, because there are things you have on hand at home you can get by with. So watch the video and see if any of these things are things you have around the house. And if you don't, and you do want to buy a few things, look online for used tools. Like I said, they don't wear out. At the end of the video, I'll show you a handful of tools that you can get by with, definitely. And I mean, it's only 4 or 5 that you can get by with. The first thing you have to do with a piece of furniture is to tear off all of the old fabric and materials. And these are some tools that will help you get the job done. As you can see over on the far left, that long flathead screwdriver is something you can use if you don't want to buy these upholstery specific tools. So the yellow handled tool is a staple lifter, and you can see that it has that little fork tooth at the end that gets under the staples or tacks to lift them up. The second lifter is a Berry staple lifter. It's just a different brand. And then there's some crescent pliers from the hardware store. And these are just little ergonomic upholstery pinchers, I guess they call them. Of course, you'll need a big pair of sharp shears, and these are some shears I got in a kit that came with upholstery tools, as well as the gooseneck web stretcher and the magnetized tack hammer. And then I bought at Harbor Freight just a plain mallet. And what I do is put a tube sock over that mallet so that the black does not rub off on any fabric. But these are some of the tools that you'll just need to have on hand if you're going to do more than one upholstery project. I use 2 different electric staplers, and these are upholstery specific. I'll tell you a little bit about them in a second. This is the Maestri electric stapler, and that is still sold widely on different upholstery websites. And this second one is called the Duo Fast. And the Duo Fast is a lot heavier, it's more powerful, but it is heavy if you were going to use it all day long. And there's one thing I would like to tell you. If you're a DIY upholsterer, a manual stapler or a stapler with a thicker gauge staple will work. However, there's a reason that upholsterers use specific upholstery staple guns, and it's that the gauge of the staple is a lot thinner. And so when you're stapling through fabric, you want the staple to just kind of pierce through there without grabbing a hold of a thread and pulling it. So on some of those thicker gauge staples, the edge or the leg of the staple will grab a hold of one of the threads and push it down, and you'll get what we call a run or a snag in the fabric. Then moving on, if you're going to go ahead and go pneumatic, which I suggest, this is my orange stapler. I named Orangey, and I used it for about 25 years. It's a fabulous Fasco stapler. And the next one over is one that I recently got, and it's BEA, as you can see, and it's a long nose stapler that's really handy to get down inside between an arm and a deck of a chair if you need to get some staples in there. So if you're going to go for the pneumatic, there are other brands too, but these are 2 that I like. Now, when you get up to the finish work, this is a regulator with a black handle, and that's used to poke through the fabric and kind of stir around some padding or something that you might have that needs to fill into the corners of a chair seat. There's a lot of reasons or a lot of uses for a regulator, but you can also use that long tufting needle you see next to it. And many times there are places when you put your fabric on top of padding that it's not smooth, it's not tight looking, it's kind of baggy. And you get in there with those needles or the regulator and kind of stir it around or regulate it, and it fills in. And this is not something that is unusual for an upholsterer to do. Next to that, the white handled thing that looks like a scalloped spatula sort of, is if you want to put decorative nail heads in the edge of a chair, this has a measured out notch surface, so you can line those up and have 5 staples lined up at a time. Not staples, nail heads. You can line those up and pound those in, and you know that they're equidistant from each other. And the other thing is a curved needle, which is really important to have if you're, for any project, pillows, cushions, anything that you're going to hand stitch, a curved needle is important. And then in the end, putting trim on that is a single welt cord or a double welt cord. You will have to have some method to attach it, and usually we staple one end and then hot glue it the rest of the way around. This is an industrial hot glue gun, and it has that nice long nozzle on the end that gets in when you can't otherwise push that thickness right there down in between something. I'm going to show you what I had when I got started, and I probably worked years before I ever started buying a collection of upholstery tools. So the first thing, you'll always need a pair of good sharp scissors. All right, I have this little pair of pincher clippers, but these I got from an upholstery supply shop, but you can just use crescent pliers. I used my crescent pliers, which I can't find right this minute. I used them for years. So you're going to need this because this is very handy in taking staples or tacks out of your old furniture. Now on the video you saw this staple lifter with the little pronged end. Well, you don't have to have this. I used a long flathead screwdriver with a little, I would call it a small tip here. And this allowed me to get under and lift those staples almost as good as this. But sometimes when staples are embedded, you have to really pry down there to pop those up. But anyway, a long flathead screwdriver will do the trick. Now, there is one tool if you are webbing a chair, which I'm not sure you'll get to for a while. You're going to need a web stretcher, and that might be one upholstery tool you're going to have to buy. This is called a gooseneck web stretcher. There are a few different kinds, and you can get this from an upholstery supply online store or sometimes, really not locally. This is made by Osborne. Osborne is like the upholsterer's tool manufacturer. You don't have to get a specific upholstery hammer, although they have a magnetic end on them, but you can just use a regular old hammer. Sometimes you need to pound staples in that won't come out, or tacks that you can't get out. You need to pound them down in. I also have my mallet, which I told you about, with the sock. And then let's see, I think that's it. Now, like I said, you're going to need a stapler, and the reason I use an upholsterer stapler is because of the thin gauge staples. If you don't want to buy that, if you have a stapler that will plug into an air compressor, or you have an electric stapler you want to use, go ahead and give it a try. You're going to learn what works for you and what doesn't. But this is just a nice little array of supplies and tools, not supplies, but tools that can get you started. So that's what you want to do. You want to get started, and you want to see how much you like it or don't like it. And if you do like it, then you can start getting all the goodies, the supplies, because that's the most fun, right? Okay, Good luck. Go get them. Don't give up. It takes a lot of patience, but when you get that finished piece, it's all worth it.